hospital, and this is one of the major issues. So I would like to start on this. Now the question is whether the expiry date of medicine is it really important? Yes, the answer is yes, because this ensures safety and efficacy of the medicine. Now what is the meaning of expiry date? See, there are two meanings in terms of the population. First is the non-pharmacist viewpoint, which means any person who is not related to pharmacy, it can be termed as a guarantee from the manufacturer that the drug formulation will maintain its potency within this period in the storage condition recommended by them. So the manufacturer recommends a storage condition which is written on the label. So we have to, basically the expiry date is providing a guarantee that everything is fine within this time. Whereas in terms of pharmacist viewpoint, the time required for the drug content of the formulation to reduce to 90% of its labeled amount in the stated storage condition is termed as expiry. So there's a difference in understanding. We describe expiry that only 90% of the drug is now remaining. It is not zero. So basically it is a guarantee by the manufacturer with wide storage. Now this does not mean that the drug loses all its potency. And why? Because the guarantee is conditional. Unless and until the formulation is properly stored, it is of no use. So when and why did the concept of expiry date emerge? There were three major disasters in the history of medical sciences. One was in 1937, where the Lexus sulfonamide disaster happened in USA. And it was basically causing the death of many pediatric patients. Then in 1916 happened the thalidomide tragedy in Europe, which was basically observed as cocomelia. That is, the kids were born without limbs. And the third disaster was in 1963-64, where the date expired tetracycline produced renal toxicity, that is kidney failure. So all these major disasters led to the thought of stringent regulations in drug marketing in terms of safety. So what happened? There was increasing consumer awareness that we should get safe medicines, and also the laws were being made for consumer rights. So this put pressure on the lawmakers and manufacturers on the content and quality of marketed products. So then printing was made legal. Printing of what? Expiry date. Otherwise, it was optional on medicine and was mandatory only for biological products since 1990. It became a legal requirement since 1976 in UK, on 29 September 1978 in US, and in India since 1986. And since then, all the drugs have to have an expiry date. Now, expiry date is not a magic number. Why it is not a magic number? Because the shelf-stable products suddenly do not go rancid on the printed date. Suppose it is mentioned it is May 2020. So it doesn't mean that if you take it on 1st June, it has no potency in it. It is not like that. Because when we talk of expiry from the pharmacist viewpoint, at least 90% of the labeled amount is still there. But the quality may decrease because we don't know what the 10% is. 90% is the drug, but we don't know what the 10% is. It may be toxic, it may not be toxic. So how do we calculate expiry date? It is not a magic number, I said. How do we calculate? We subject the product to various types of tests. That is long-term stability storage, accelerated stability storage, intermediate stability storage. And for this, we have the temperatures which have to be used. That's 25 degrees, 40, 30. Similarly, RH also has to be maintained. Now these conditions have been set because the dosage form is exposed to such conditions. It is exposed to 40 degrees, it is exposed to this kind of humidity. And then we withdraw various samples and analyze them. Next is we plot graphs. So you can see the first graph is we have the points where we have analyzed that how much drug is remaining in the formulation. Then we do linear regression to find out the straight line between the scattered points. And then the next test is finding out the 95% confidence limit. And then what is done is against the 90%, right? We know that shelf life means 90% drug remaining. So at what time the 90% drug is remaining, that is calculated. Now this is not the shelf life, it is the conformance period. Because you get the value in suppose fractions. They're like 13.2, 26.9, 36.1. This has to be rounded up. For example, 13.2 is converted to 12 months, which means the product shelf life is 1 year. So 13.1, even if the answer is 13.2, you will convert it into 12 because it is very difficult. You have 13 months के लिए expiry date mention करें. Likewise, 26.9 is converted to 24 months, which means that the product is stable for 2 years. Likewise, we have 36 months, that is the product is stable for 3 months, which means that each product has an extra margin of safety. So in terms of calculation, we always have an extra margin of safety. So which means clearly that whatever date has been mentioned, it is not that somebody is going to take the medicine and drop that in the road. It's not going to happen like that. Now what is the current scenario in India? Expiry date is mentioned on the label of all products in accordance to Schedule P. So Schedule P is the regulatory segment of the regulation where we find the expiry date. So it contains a table which has 4 columns where we take the number, name of the drug, and the period in months between the date of manufacture and the date of expiry. And what is important is the condition of storage. And this table contains the drugs which are belonging to antibiotics, vitamins, insulin preparations, normal human plasma, toxoids, vaccines, and other antibiotics. So for each of them, the expiry date is mentioned, but necessarily the condition of storage is also mentioned. And if the drug is not included in Schedule P, then the maximum expiry period will be only of 5 years. 5 years. किसी भी product में 5 years से ज़्यादा की expiry नहीं होगी. Now what is important is storage. If we don't store it properly or if we don't transport it properly, अगर आप open truck में ले जा रहे हैं गर्मी में, so definitely the drug will be expired earlier than the expiry date printed on the label. So if the drug is not stored properly or it is not transported properly, so expiry date का कोई मतलब नहीं है because the drug has already been degraded. Likewise, if we store it properly and transport it properly, then the potency remains intact even after the printed expiry date. And this was first noticed in US and confirmed. So that is why they have a shelf life extension program where they, after testing the expired product, they extend the shelf life of the drug by 2 years. Now, what is important is the storage condition. Now, in India, there are 4 distinct storage conditions prescribed by Schedule P. One is food place, which is the temperature between 10 to 25 degrees. Then we have cold place, where the temperature is not more than 8 degrees. Then the third is capsule should be kept in well-closed container and temperature not exceeding 30 degrees. And wherever condition of storage is not specified, it may be stored under normal room temperature. Now the question is, what is room temperature? You are sitting in an AC room, the room temperature is different. You go out, the room temperature is different. So what is room temperature? See, if you see the warm place, it is 30 to 40 degrees centigrade, and excessive heat is 40 degrees, which means that the room temperature is below 25 but below 30. Warm से कम होगा, right? And cool place से ज़्यादा होगा. So it is between 25 to 30 degrees, which means we should, अगर किसी product पे लिखा है it should be stored at room temperature, so it means it should be stored between 25 to 30 degrees. But I have collected a data of various cities in in India, which is Agra, Ahmedabad, Allahabad, Bangalore, Bhopal, Chennai, Kolkata, Hyderabad, and Calcutta. In the month of May, you can see the temperatures. None of them is in the room temperature range, which means it is neither, it is not between 25 to 30 degrees. So if we are keeping the medications even in our room without air conditioner, definitely it is already going to degrade, irrelevant of the expiry date which has been mentioned. So, which means that we are not storing at room temperature, which is violation of the rule, and therefore there will be loss of efficacy even within the expiry date. Now, one of the major problems in government institutions is stockpiling. That is, we tend to purchase large number of drugs or formulations because of the conditions of the or the policy of the particular institution. So what happens is we keep on stockpiling, and gradually what happens, we have large number of expired drugs with us. So it was a report in June 2016 that in Bangalore city and Bangalore rural district, large quantities of unused drugs that have not been destroyed for 15 years, and their worth was rupees 10 crores, which means a huge capital loss. And it was waiting for disposal because the state government has to decide how to dispose it. And the answer was soon. But the soon is how far, nobody knows. So basically, we have to dispose the expired medicines, whether or not it has the potency or whether it is safe or toxic. Because we cannot use it in clinic. So the medicines are not a serious health hazard, but the disposal is very necessary. Now, what will happen if we don't dispose them correctly? There will be contamination of drinking water. If you dispose antibiotics and disinfectants into sewage, it will kill the microbes and all the living forms. If you dispose anti-cancer drugs into water source, it will damage the aquatic life forms. If you burn the drug products in open, it will release toxic pollutants to the air. And if you dispose in original packaging, it may lead to recycling. Now this is more dangerous. Why? Because if the product is just disposed like that, there are some people who are doing wrong things. They will peel off the label and put a new label on it. So an expired drug with a new label will come fresh into the market. And there is no way how you will find out what is the difference between these two. And I have come to know, I am not saying this, it is not a statement, I have come to know that this process is being conducted in somewhere in Agra. So which means that we need to safely dispose, and safe disposal can be done at individual and community level. Individual level is through household waste management system, and this has to be done carefully. How can you do it? Mix the tablet or capsules with unpalatable substances such as dirt or any waste material in the house. Place the mixture in a sealed plastic bag and throw the container in the household trash. So don't throw the medicines like this. It has to be mixed with something dirty. So this is a picture which shows mixed with an unappealing substance, placed in a sealed container, throw in household trash. And if you are using a bottle, scratch out any personal information. In community level, pharmacies can collect expired drug products and dispose them off as community service. Or the government can introduce take-back drug policy. And even the community pharmacies can select appropriate disposal method. So this is one picture which shows that in a hospital, trash can has been introduced for the collection of expired medicines. Now, disposal of large quantities of drug products can have negative impact on the environment and cause drug pollution. So, careful disposal is essential. That is why WHO has recommended various methods for disposal. First is returning to the manufacturer. This should be the first choice. That if there is an expired medicine, return it to the manufacturer because they have good methods to dispose. So this will have no negative impact on the environment. Second is landfill, which is the oldest method and most practiced method, where the waste material is directly placed onto the land disposal site. जहाँ भी कूड़ा कचरा फेंका जा रहा है, वहाँ पे you have to throw the waste material, the drug. And three types of procedures are used: open controlled non-engineered dump, engineered landfill, and highly engineered sanitary landfill. The untreated pharmaceutical waste must be immediately covered with other municipal waste to prevent scavenging. Third method is waste immobilization, where the expired drug is mobilized. So directly आप drug को land में डालें, इससे सबको mobilize करें. How you can mobilize it? Convert it into a solid block by using a mixture of lime, cement, and water. So this will convert the drug to a cement block में convert हो जाएंगे, and then it can be disposed of in the landfill covered with fresh municipal solid waste. Then is waste immobilization. So in this, what we do is we remove the packaging material and from the expired pharmaceuticals and then ground them, make into a paste with a mixture of lime, cement, and water, and then the paste is transported to the landfill and decanted gradually to the wasting room. So this is the picture which is very scary, which shows that the drugs have been thrown into water bodies, and what will happen is the drugs will leach out and you can have various drugs in the water. and you'll not be aware that you're consuming the drug. Even it will be taken up by the animals also. Next is sewer, flushing down into sewer. Some pharmaceuticals like syrups and parenterals, they can be flushed into sewer after proper dilution. Likewise, small quantities of expired liquid drug products, including antiseptics, can be disposed by flushing after dilution. So if you have to flush any material, liquid pharmaceutical, first dilute it and then flush it into the toilet. And the US FDA recommends a list of medication that only 14 medications have been listed by US FDA to be disposed via flushing into the toilet. Next is burning in open container. Now this is recommended only for disposal of small quantities of waste drug products. You can see in the picture the authorities are unloading the expired drug cartons and then they are being burned. Now this is a huge environmental pollution. But mind it, it should not be done at very high level and it's only for very small quantities of the expired material. Finally, we have incineration, where we can use incinerators which are working at temperature of 800 to 1000 degrees. For this, we can use cement kiln. We cannot use metal kiln. Cement kiln जैसे ईंटों की भट्टी होती है उस तरह से. And the temperature can go beyond 1000 also because at beyond 1000 all the organic radiation gets fragmented or disintegrated. So flow is an effective method. It is recommended only when absolutely necessary. Why? Because for achieving this high temperature, we require very high energy source. So that is the trouble. And the last one is chemical decomposition, where the drug is chemically treated and then converted into some inorganic or organic waste. For example, expired paracetamol tablet can be converted into carbon, and that carbon can be used for any other purpose where we require. This method is only practical again when we have very small quantities of drug. Otherwise, it is a very tedious and consuming process, time-consuming process, and is used only when other methods are not available. Now, this slide shows a survey of 500 patients, and they were asked for how they dispose the medication. So the result was 50%, 54% dispose the medications directly into the trash. 35% flush the drugs down the toilet or sink. 7.2% did not dispose of medication. 2% used all medication prior to expiration, and 1.4% returned medications to the pharmacy. So these are the habits of the patients which they follow for the expired drug, and this needs to be improved. Definitely, this needs to be improved by use of government take-back programs, or we have to work at individual level or at community level. So conclusion is that we should have judicious selection of disposal method, which is very important. Now, while the expired drugs may not be put into clinical practice, but effective disposal is a serious threat to the public health and environment, and we need to develop good disposal practice for expired medicine. Thank you so much, and don't let your medications get into wrong hands. Thank you so much for listening.